Hello everybody and welcome to Chess 24. My name is Jan Gustafsson and I'm delighted to be reunited with Mr. Lawrence Trent.
I'm delighted. I'm more delighted.
Are you more delighted than me? I'm pretty delighted.
You're pretty delighted. I know you are.
So we've missed each other during the World Championship. We've both done commentary, but you've done Spanish. I've been doing like German highlight videos and a bit of writing. And we haven't talked about it much.
No.
So
we talked about it over a candlelight dinner, me and you.
We shouldn't share this with the viewers.
Not so much.
It's disturbing. Let's get the show rolling. A bit more. I can't speak anymore.
It's late. It's 6:30. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
We've recorded a great series today, haven't we, Jan? Actually,
we have. We've had a long working day.
Are we allowed to tell our people, or are we gonna? We'll keep them. We won't ruin the surprise for them, shall we?
No. Let's plug it. The main idea of the show is to plug stuff which is not out yet, so people don't have a chance to buy it anyway.
No, we've got something up our sleeves that is going to be with you guys, premium members, very soon. Actually, it's actually a pretty decent series. No?
It is great.
I'm happy with it.
We're just exhausted after recording all day.
We've been recording all day.
So what we want to do in this show is have a look back at the Carlsen-Anand World Championship match. Ended a couple days ago. I was having fun. I thought it was exciting.
It was a good match. It was certainly a lot better than last year's match in Chennai, where let's just be honest, Vishy got absolutely spanked, and a different Vishy turned up this year, but not a completely different Vishy, and that's the problem I've got with it. Everybody knows more or less what happened. I think by now everybody knows what happened.
Where, in Chennai?
No, in
Sochi. I don't think we're
not
going to keep the storyline straight. Magnus Carlsen won the match, defended his title. Sorry for the spoiler, but
I think everybody
who watches this show will know. So, what do you think, Vishy? One thing was clear: he was stronger in the openings, not only than Magnus, but also stronger than in Chennai. Choosing one d4, he really dictated the openings in his white games, and also with black, he didn't run into a lot of theory problems, let's say.
No, he didn't. But again, and we'll see this as we go through some of the key games in this match, Jan, what really disappointed me about Vishy, and let's get one thing absolutely clear before I start this little tirade, is that Vishy Anand, I remember when I started chess, he was one of the guys that I remember watching in the Intel series. I remember very clearly. You know, this fast guy, very tactical, great chess. His match against Kasparov in '95. This was a guy who inspired me when I first started, and it was a fearless guy. And unfortunately now we see a Vishy Anand who, maybe it's strictly against Magnus Carlsen, but he's got a real psychological issue playing against Magnus Carlsen. He doesn't seem to be able to press enough. He doesn't seem to be able to take advantage of really, really promising positions, and he bottles it, and that's the bottom line. He just doesn't seem to be able to do it against Magnus, and that's an issue I don't think that he's going to now be able to solve as Magnus gets stronger, arguably. Vishy gets, unfortunately for him, slightly older and slightly less motivated, other goals in life. He's got a kid and so on and so forth. So That's really what disappointed me about Vishy's play.
It's an interesting take, because most of the reactions I've seen were more like Vishy put up a good fight, but he wasn't quite strong enough. But people were more saying it's a chess thing, from what I've read, different generation, than a psychological thing. You and I have had this discussion in the past about Vishy, especially not so much in this match, but arguably in the last match and also before that. Like, not taking enough risks to really score a big one. I didn't have that feeling in this match so much, but if we go through some games, I understand where you're coming from, that sometimes you had the feeling in these 1d4 games, he could have pushed Magnus a little further, right?
I think actually the whole strategy was wrong, because he left it so late, trailing in the match as he was, to then go all out with black, go absolutely crazy in the game that we'll see in the final game between the two. And, it made no sense to me. Why risk it all with black in that game and not try and push with zero risk with white in those positions where he had zero risk.
Well, but we can't blame him for not taking enough risks and then at the same time blame him for taking risks in that black game. I thought he...
But by then he had to take risks, is what I'm trying to say. By that point, he was already there were only 2 games to go. He got the initiative with black in that final game and then went overboard with this rook b4, which we'll see later on. But if he had pressed in those 2 clear white games that we're going to come up and see in a moment, imagine he'd converted one. Suddenly, all things are square. And you don't have to go crazy.
Yeah. Easier said than done, but yeah, we'll have a look at those. And yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I had the strange feeling that both sides probably weren't that unhappy with the outcome of the match. Of course, Vishy is unhappy that he lost,
Wow.
but he did redeem himself for Chennai in a way. He showed he can still pretty much compete eye to eye with Magnus. He changed the conversation. Like here, it's more like, couldn't he press more in some of the white games? What happens if in game 6 he takes that chance? What happens if in the last game he doesn't go rook b4, but another move? So we're talking about small things that could have changed the course of the match.
Yeah, there are small things. There are also, as we'll see, one very clear moment, which was a game changer. And again, I think that is related to the psychology. When Vishy missed his big chance, if you haven't seen it, we will go over it. But when he missed his big chance, I think it was not because of course, it's not because he didn't see the idea. He would do that tactic when he's 10 years old. He would see that tactic, I should say. But I think it was more out of too much respect for Magnus. No, Magnus, I don't think he could have blundered in this position. I think it was just a case of he didn't think that Magnus could make such a big blunder like that. And I do somewhere deep down believe that he has got too much respect for Magnus in that sense. His nerves, he admitted it himself, and I think he was being honest. I think his nerves as well. In the right moments, his nerves weren't as strong as Magnus. Magnus is extremely tough in that sense. That's why if we do see in the next World Championship, for example, Carlsen, Caruana's got absolutely fantastic nerves. If we look at somebody like Levon Aronian, also fantastic nerves.
No, I would disagree, especially in the Levon Aronian case. I would disagree because whenever it was even about qualifying for that stage, he's shown bad nerves. And with Fabiano, we don't know. I agree he's a cool customer, but we've never seen him in a World Championship match playing for that crown, a long match against one opponent. So it's really hard to tell.
It's hard to tell.
And Magnus, we've also seen him being nervous in the candidates tournament in London, in the first couple games in Chennai. So it's always very hard to judge.
It's open to interpretation, and that's why we want to hear from you. Ladies and gentlemen, please send us your questions, your thoughts, hashtag C24Live, or you can even post at the bottom of the news article that we have tweeted. So please give us your input. We want to hear from you.
We've pretty much been answering the first question by Cosmic. How do you rate each player's performance regardless of the result? For me, I see it a bit differently. I'm not that critical with Vishy this time around. I was very critical after the last match. For me, it was more like he redeemed himself. He got back to that stage. I think he's the weaker player. I think Magnus is inferior in the opening, but he's superior in other areas of the game. And nerves might be a part of that, but also the range of positions he can handle, how many he can defend, what he needs to build an initiative. And fearlessness could also a point of it. But I thought Vishy did quite decently. He really made a fight out of it. He had a good year 2014 in general. And we're talking about these small turning points which didn't go his way. Which, of course, it's not a game of luck, but at least they were there.
Well, as I said before, I'm far more critical. It's easy for me to say it as well. I hold my hands up and accept that. It's very easy for me to see it here and say that I'm nowhere near these guys.
No, that's our job. No one questions they're stronger players than us, right? I question it, but that's it.
But no, actually, I still do. I'm going to stick by my words here and say I think that Vishy really lacks the psychological edge in order to succeed against somebody like Magnus, and I think Magnus needs somebody who can withstand the nerves to really give it a good go. And I just think in those occasions where Vishy was pressing, if the if the players stood up from their seats and sat in the opposite seat, would we have seen Carlsen bail out like Vichy did? We'll see a few examples. The absolute answer is no. We would have seen those games go on for 100 moves. If it ended in a draw, fine. We can then say, do you know what? He really, really pushed it to the limit. But we didn't see that, and I think that was for me the most disappointing thing.
Of course I agree, but I'll keep playing
You
Vichy's
play
advocate.
You play Vichy's advocate.
You can always say if you turn the board around, Carlsen would have pressed for 100 moves, and he would have, because that's what he does. That's what Carlsen does. But you can also say, why doesn't Carlsen ever do any work on the openings? If you turn the board around, Vichy's going to play 1d4 very differently, because he put in the work, right? And that's also a strength.
Yeah. Lots of takes on it. Please send us your comments. Perhaps we should look at some games.
Some chess going.
Let's get some games going, and then
let's just approach it chronologically for starters. First game, Grunfeld. First of all, 1d4 played by Vichy. I believe the correct choice, because 1e4. First of all, I think that in e4, e5 territory, Carlsen's very strong with both colors. Secondly, I thought it was very unlikely that Team Vichy would have anything against the Berlin, and that would be a good battlegrounds for them. So I thought 1d4 was a good choice for Vichy, and also to stick to it.
I agree, yeah. And it was seen in a match that this he got a lot of good positions with 1d4. So that's the way to play against Magnus.
First game, Magnus chose the Grunfeld, which has not been his main opening recently. No. He's played it a bit in the past, on and off, but it hasn't been his main choice. I thought it was interesting. It was a bit like the same tactic like in Chennai. In the first match, he springs a bit of a surprise. There he played the Caro-Kann. And then, as we'll see in the third game, he resorts to what he thought would be his main opening, the Queen's Gambit. Still, this first game, there's not that much to say. In a way, it was telling the story of things to come. Anand got a good position out of the opening, had an interesting idea. Somewhere around here, I think white is better with his bishop, and I think he had prepared this plan. Then Carlsen did what he does, was being tenacious, found a good maneuver, bringing his knight back to d8, and actually turned the game to quite an extent. I must admit I haven't followed this game all that much, but from what I've seen and read, and I've checked a bit later on, Carlsen even had the chance to play for win and maybe win with rook e3. I think people were tweeting and analyzing that this was a good winning chance.
Well, actually, the directorate is this cute little rook takes a3.
Checkmate.
Which is checkmate, a beautiful little idea. And yeah, so, Carlsen did have a chance in that game. But it was the first game. They want to get settled in, so you can't blame him for
no, but still it was a bit telling us the story of things to come. Vichy plays 1d4, gets a good position out of the opening, and Carlsen hangs around, or as Nakamura put it, gets out of the tough spots, but did not convert.
So draw in the first game, and probably both players reasonably happy not to lose the first game.
Well, first game we've seen this very often in World Championship matches. It's a bit about getting your feet wet, and you don't really want to start with a loss. Second game, all the armchair generals united, me included, were screaming, yeah, this match is over already. It's going to be like Chennai or worse. Carlsen won very convincingly, played a very nice game. I don't want to go through the whole game here.
Well, the recaps we have online, just
Obviously.
24 of the games. You can look at my recaps of every round. Jan's recaps if you speak German.
Mine are in German, but they are excellent.
They are excellent. Davis's recaps in Spanish, if you like that. So we've got various languages for you to do. So I don't think we should do that. But the critical moments, Jan.
Yeah, I thought this was just a great game by Carlsen overall.
It was, yeah.
First of all, well, I'm always a big opening geek, so I was curious about what went on there. He chose 1e4. Vichy went for the Berlin, which is his main opening, and not a surprise to see what Carlsen is up to there, at the very least. And Carlsen did very Carlsen-esque things, which is he played d3, avoiding the main line, then castles, also not the main line, d6. Just played a move, rook e1. Nothing critical, but get a position, bishop takes c6, h3. Somehow he managed to put an equal position, which we haven't seen before yet on the board. And he went on to, I'm not sure we can say outplay, but to play a good game from here and to put a lot of pressure on Vichy.
No, absolutely. I think it was an excellent game by Magnus. Again, wasn't worried about getting an equal position even with white, but did what Magnus does, slowly found some great ideas. I love the idea with rook a3 on move 14, just swinging the rook over.
Yeah, and that's a bit the brilliance of Magnus. One small inaccuracy, I think people were criticizing. Queen c7, c5 looked like a good move, for example, was suggested here. But one maybe small inaccuracy by Vichy, Queen c7, and here Carlsen really springs to life immediately. And this sequence, rook a3, takes, knight to h4. And all of a sudden, all the boys are operating at full
back
capacity.
in town. Even that is nothing for what actually it's been shown.
No,
yeah.
black can still hold, but just to make something out of what really looked like nothing.
Make something out of nothing, yeah.
Is a Carlsen skill for sure.
And it all,
Here,
already,
something.
yeah.
Bishop h6 was possible here, h4 was interesting.
Yeah, h4 was a good move.
Yeah.
And so Carlsen won the second one, but we have to go to move
we have
34.
to go to this position where Carlsen has a big edge and he's played a great game. But Vichy blundered with h5, which ends the game immediately after queen b7, which once again can't really be a chess thing solely because it's not that hard to spot.
Yeah.
And once again you can come up with theories like, did he believe he was lost anyway and wanted to end the suffering, or didn't really pay attention anymore? Was it nerves? I'm not quite sure.
Let's get some tweets. We've got a couple of tweets. Hashtag C24 Live. We do want to hear from you. This is a live show, so please send us your tweets now and not in 5 hours when we'll be tucking into...
No, still send them. I love every tweet. I love these little messages like on Twitter, but we won't be able to reply.
We won't be able to reply. Got a tweet from a man who was in Sochi, one of the most active people in social media, doing a great job. Mr. Tarje Svensson. Hello, Tarje. Tarje has said something very interesting. He said, Anand has said he wants to continue his career without any plans of retiring. How do you see his chances at the next candidates? What do you think, Jan? Has he got it in him to win the next candidates and go for a third time against Magnus Carlsen?
Well, he surprised everybody at this year's candidates. I think no one really expected him to win that one after what happened in the last match. This time around, I think he's shown that he can still play with the guys. A lot depends on the field. Like, I don't think anybody's not been impressed. How many knots do we need in this sentence? By Fabiano Caruana's performance this year. So if he's in the candidates, if he has time to prepare, if he can control his nerves, he would be my number one favorite.
Yeah. Well,
then,
of course,
to throw out another name, since Caruana would be everybody's number one favorite, Levon Aronian, freed from the burden of not being the number one favorite to qualify, maybe this is his time. And
not only Levon Aronian, what about Mr. Alexander Grishchuk? Let's remember, the guy's 28-10. He could get a nomination to get in there. He could win a World Cup, or he could qualify through various means. But you don't quite have the faith in Grishchuk to pull it off in one of these big tournaments.
I'm a huge Grishchuk fan, as we've said on all these shows, but I haven't seen him really competing for first in one of those tournaments. Like, I thought in this knockout mode where he got very far, he got to the final with Gelfand, I thought that was his thing, these matches with the blitz and so on. Else, I've never had the feeling, but I could be very wrong, and recently Grishchuk, it looks like he's been putting in a lot more time and playing great, that he is dedicated enough to chess to put everything aside and prepare for these candidates matches. Who knows, he's 28-10, so to come back to the question, I don't think Anand is losing any of his chess strength, and I think he still is one of the 5-6 best players in the world, even after this match. But he wouldn't be my number one favorite for the next candidates. I would say Caruana, Aronian. I'm not willing to give you Grishchuk. I would say Kramnik, last march of Kramnik. And then Vichy as the favorites.
I'm going to, just very quickly to give you my opinion on it, Tarje, I don't expect him to even come close at the next candidates. 2 years down the line, motivation is going to wane.
Is the next candidates in 2 years?
I beg your pardon. Yeah, it's the same year as the World Championships, right? There's no candidates next year. So
is that true?
Well, there's the final Grand Prix in May. So unless they put the candidates at the end of next year, which I don't think it is, I think it's going to be in March of 2016. Or maybe it'll be the end of the year and then they'll do the tournament. I think things are unclear. But in any case, it's not for a while. Vichy, is he going to keep up motivation? I don't think so. I think it's time for somebody else. And I think, as you said, Caruana is clear favourite if he continues his form. I just can't see Vichy getting close. Let's check out another tweet, Jan, and we've got one here. I can't quite read it. Perhaps you can read it for me. It's on the screen.
Rene M. Pineda is saying, with white, Vichy wasn't prepared to fight if he didn't get a clear advantage from the opening.
That's an interesting question. Was Vichy prepared to fight if his advantage was minimal with white?
I think, we would have to go into some specific positions. I understand where you're coming from. And, it's kind of the point you made earlier. But it's always small decisions, like where he did play the games out, but then he took some decisions like bishop takes b7, simplifying to a draw, and this Queen's Indian, rook takes a7. We'll get there. I'm not quite sure. It's more your line, your storyline that he wasn't psychologically ready.
I think it is. I think it's a psychological thing, and
I think it's more of a chess thing. We haven't really seen Vichy win that way, like grinding out very, very small things against top-class opponents. He needs these big hits, and he hasn't been getting them.
Maybe it's a combination of both. Who knows? Let's go to game 3. And
game
this
3,
was,
that was the big comeback.
Big comeback, big moment actually in the match, because I was extremely happy for Vichy. He beat Magnus. But, when we look back at this match and we think, when did Vichy beat Magnus? We think, well, he only beat him in one game. How did he beat Magnus? He beat him thanks
pure preparation.
His pure preparation. Did he actually beat Magnus over the board? No, he didn't. And that's the big difference.
Well, I disagree with the over-the-board preparation distinction. Preparation is over-the-board play. It's time you put in working on your game. While Carlsen has been working on end games or whatever, Vichy has been working on this. So I disagree with that distinction. A win is still a win. But you can't argue that he only won one game out of, how many games were there total?
Well,
21?
There were only 11 in the end.
No, I mean in the last two matches.
Oh, in the last two
21,
matches.
21, I think.
21 games,
Right.
And that's not good.
That's not a lot. Then again, he's dealing with this guy who broke Kasparov's rating record, who's been winning every other tournament, right?
Let's
Doesn't make it easy.
Doesn't make it easy. Let's have a look at the game and let's just go through.
Yeah, this game was kind of shocking. We haven't talked much about Magnus Carlsen's performance. Like, we don't have to argue he's a fantastic player, fantastic defender, great feeling and so on. I was shocked by his opening preparation, how weak it was, especially with black.
It was strange, and
this line, everybody and their dog has been playing this line forever at top level, and like everybody should have been preparing this forever. And Carlsen goes here against Vichy. It seemed like he didn't know the first thing.
No.
First of all, everybody plays knight h5 here, but you could argue, of course, okay, they checked c6, they found some idea, but it didn't look like that at all.
Well, they followed this game on Carlsen-Anand, didn't they? From
which is a well-known game. There's some subtleties here. I covered that in my video. Maybe was expecting h3, which was supposed to be all the rage. But Anand spotted that the pawn on h2 has some advantage as well. Clearly Anand had done his homework. But Carlsen's homework in this game I was really, really shocked by. Because, well, now there's been all these revelations. He did have Peter Heine Nielsen on side. He had Mickey Adams, who actually played this game. Right?
Well, that's what makes me even more baffled, because this revelation was made a day or two ago that Mickey was working with.
Yeah, the rumors were there. I remember discussing it with Bacro, for example, that people were suspecting it, but it was only confirmed like a day or two ago.
But if Mickey, what surprises me then, if Mickey has actually done some work here, how could they have missed on move 19 and 20, I mean, the improvement. They're following still Carlsen-Anand from 2013.
Yeah, of course, no, you can't be expected to know every game, every one of your seconds has ever played, but you decide to play the Queen's Gambit in a World Championship match. This nowadays is the main line of the main line of the main line of the main line of the Queen's Gambit. So to be unprepared here
it's very strange,
was
isn't it?
really, really strange. And, well, theoretically speaking, I think d takes e4 might be an improvement. But everybody, like even on Twitter, people were saying right when he played this line, Anish Giri was saying, this is not a good line, everybody knows that. And just check Aronian against Adams and your computer will jump. So Vichy played the main line of this opening, made the computer moves and got a winning position, which is good preparation by Anand, but frankly, it's not even that special preparation. We haven't seen how deep his knowledge is in this game because he just scored an easy win in the main line.
Absolutely. And to go
In this
down
position, he said he had this position still on the board in preparation, Anand, and this is winning already with the passed C pawn.
Yeah, just bizarre. I mean, the rest of the game, he played all right. Rook c6 on move 26 was a good move. But then even here, he played solid.
No, he played good moves.
He played good moves. But it wasn't really testing.
Yeah, but we can't blame him for that, right? I mean, we can blame Carlsen for... I don't know. I mean, I understand he's the strongest player ever and has a very different approach to the game and to what is important. And he's been doing amazingly, avoiding a lot of theory spots. But in this match, I felt he was living very, very close to the edge. Like after this game and in every black game, he had to come up with a new line. He could play for one game, like Nigel Short called it a condom variation, which you play once and then throw away. I wasn't that impressed.
No, I agree, and I think that's something he desperately needs to work on before the next title defense. Because
and if we imagine the next guy, like imagine anybody, another Vichy or Vladimir Kramnik with his white preparation, and Levon Aronian with his d4 preparation.
Yeah.
If Fabiano Caruana playing both e4 and d4, Grishuk, this wasn't impressive.
It's a problem. So Vichy won that, and he squared the match, and people were saying, it's going to be a real fight. But for some reason, Vichy just didn't manage to keep the momentum going. Perhaps we can take another tweet in the meantime here, Jan.
What's up?
We've got a question, if we can scroll down, Mr. Producer, on the Twitter page, just so we can... Got a lot of feedback here. First, we're not going to put that up. Sudashan, we're not commentating on Qatar, but we do have the live feed on the page, so just to clear that up. But what about this one for Ozgur Akman? What about Kramnik's chances, very quickly, Jan? You're a big Kramnik fan. Do you see him having a chance in the...
I think I threw his name out there in my list. I always think he's in with a chance if he makes it to the candidates motivated. He's a bit, in my opinion nowadays, a bit like Gelfand, who can't bring it every event, but he's very, very focused on the World Championship cycle. Like Gelfand, if he's in there, you never know. He could also bring it. So yeah, what was my list? Caruana, Aronian. Did I say Kramnik third? I can't remember anything for like more than a minute.
Grishuk, Kramnik.
Yeah, no, I think Kramnik is always in with a shot. I think
He's got to qualify first, right? He's not a guaranteed qualifier.
He's not making it in by rating, right? And he's not playing the Grand Prix.
So how's he getting in? World Cup and that's it, really?
Well, if it's organized in Russia, he might get a wild card, or he would have to.
It's not going to be organised in Russia, I don't think, again. But you never know. Might be in Canton.
You never know. So yeah, you gotta get there first. That's also what Nakamura said when asked about his chances. Well, you have to qualify first, and then let's talk about that, right?
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Thanks for that tweet, Ozgur. Let's carry on with the games. Game 4 was
this is an interesting spot actually. Game 4, 1 e4, c5. I was applauding this move. I had the feeling that after e4, e5, Carlsen has an edge. Not in the theory department, but more in the... He just loves these e4, e5 positions. I was surprised, and it made me reconsider that. Reading what Fabiano Caruana had to say in an interview, I think yesterday, he said Vichy's biggest mistake in the match was going for e4, c5. He should have stuck with the Berlin, where it was obvious Magnus had nothing. What do you think?
It's a very, very interesting declaration there from Fabiano, because in these games when he did play c5, truth of the matter is, Magnus, well, in this game, Game 4, he certainly didn't suffer. He was...
even this one he suffered a bit, I thought.
Not
theoretically, really. It was a normal position out of the opening. But first of all, I thought it was more of a Magnus position, and secondly,
Yeah, but I didn't really feel like he suffered that much. I think he found it was around here he was starting to get out, maybe slightly outplayed, but
around here he's in trouble. Huh? I mean, he defended well, and
Yeah.
Magnus didn't push all that hard in this one. That's why I was thinking, like, all this blaming Vichy for not pushing hard enough is making moves, right? And if the result is different, we could also blame Magnus here. Why didn't he play bishop c3, planning queen d4 or knight d4 with pressure, right? Why did he exchange
It's
everything,
true.
leading to a draw? So we are all armchair generals and Captain Hindsights. But in general, I felt the opening wasn't a success for Vichy in this one,
Interesting.
even though I did like his choice.
I think it was, for me personally, commentating on the games live as well, I think it was more of a, as soon as they got to the middle game stage, I think the opening, if you look at after bishop h5 or move 15, which I consider the opening still, I think black is doing absolutely fine in this position.
Yeah, especially one move later after
And
h3,
bishop g6.
bishop
I think I actually prefer black to a certain extent. I think he's got lots of play. But it was around the middle game where he started to lose the plot. You're right. Magnus missed 24, bishop c3. And... but after that he managed to hold on and ended up as a draw. And I have to agree, I'm slightly surprised by what Fabiano said, that this was his big mistake playing c5, because in the e5 games he also... So it all depends on your interpretation of suffering. My interpretation of suffering is I think quite different to your interpretation of suffering. At this level, the interpretation of suffering is also very different. So... I don't know. I don't think you can attribute it to that. I'm going to stick by my guns and say the match was decided by not pressing with those white games and really not with his... Vichy said he wasn't happy with his black games. I remember in the press conference post-match, he said, I really wasn't happy. Was really happy with white and not happy with black. And
Well, he did score the final score. He scored -3 with black, which is pretty terrible, right?
Right.
I mean, like out of, what was it, 6 games? He scored 1.5 out of 6.
Yeah, but if we look at the black games that he lost, and we'll come on to them, we've seen one already. One, I think he just outright deserved to lose. Game
The
two.
one we just saw, he was
Yeah.
outplayed.
Outplayed. But if we look at the game where he had a win on the spot, and if we also look at the final game where he was pressing, actually out of those 3 games, he had the initiative and the better position at a certain moment. So, I have to actually disagree with Vichy. I think he needs to reassess how he was playing with white. But that, again, this is all personal opinion, and there's no right or wrong in this argument. That's what we do. So
I want to answer one quick Twitter question briefly, because it's interesting. Stephen the Bates is saying, would opening prep have a significant impact on Magnus Carlsen's rating?
Wow.
My opinion is actually no. I think his opening prep is fine in a way for tournaments, and it's also a strength that he gets positions where he can outplay people. And if you do a lot of opening work, like Vichy has done, Kramnik has done, a lot of guys have done, you're also more stuck in your variations, which could, for Carlsen, lead to a lot of draws if his opponent has also put in the work and you don't get anywhere. So I think his expectation, rating-wise, is quite high, playing what he does, getting positions and trying to grind people out. I do think, however, it would increase his chances in the next World Championship match to have one reliable line against one d4, let's say, or in general to have a stable black repertoire, because this was his Achilles heel in this match, and it could really tell against the next opponent.
I agree. I think if he sorts out his openings for the matches and keeps his style as it is for the tournaments, he could be just unstoppable, actually.
Which, once again, is much easier said than done. I believe the last guy who really did pull it off was Kasparov, because we've seen it with Kramnik as world champion. He didn't have his spark anymore in tournament play, and he became a lot more solid because he was working so much on his openings. We've seen it with Anand as world champion to some extent, that, well, he became bulletproof in the openings, but he didn't win a super tournament for like 2-3 years, right?
Right, yeah. Well,
So, of
he
course...
didn't win a game for ages and ages.
Yeah.
He didn't actually win a game. He was just drawing all his games.
And that is the downside if you start putting in all the computer work and try to, make the Grunfeld or the Queen's Gambit bulletproof for a World Championship match. And Carlsen keeps winning them, so maybe it doesn't make sense to criticize him for it.
No.
But I had the feeling, to get away with this another time or against Levon or Fabiano, he would have to to put in some work on his black opening.
Just a very quick tweet that I want to address, and I know you're going to agree with me on this one, from Sudarshan Malga. Why didn't Vichy go with the Najdorf for sharper positions and e6 Sicilian as his main choice? There's a very simple reason why he didn't play the Najdorf.
Little check.
Little check on move 2. They've played this position before. Magnus was never going to play d4 in this position, but was going to play this bishop b5 check, the so-called Moscow variation of the Sicilian. Super solid, can be super dry, little pull
really,
for white.
Very well suited for Magnus' style. Magnus loves positions where he gets c4 and d4 and doesn't need an opening advantage, but very solid, controls the center. He's been posing a lot of problems for Vichy in these games. So I wasn't surprised by that. I was applauding the move 2 e6, because knight c6 you also don't get d4. You get bishop b5 or knight c3, whatever. Probably bishop b5. Once again, you're playing Magnus' kind of chess.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go on to game 5. And this was, again, a very kind of...
What was game 5?
This is game 5 here. Now,
this is maybe the first game to make your case where you could criticize Vichy for not putting enough pressure, right?
Yes.
Let's skip the opening.
Yeah.
I mean, Carlsen had to change his opening. That's important. He went for b6, g3, and a total sideline here. Bishop b4 check, bishop b7. Hardly ever seen. And Vichy, being the opening monster that he is, he knew everything, and he got a stable edge. And the really critical point, I believe, they reached this ending more or less by force. Good power play by Vichy, good defense by Magnus. Is here where white simplified to a draw within 2 moves, right?
And this is what I'm talking about here. And you know, going and what frustrated me, and I will use that verb, is the fact that Vichy saw the promising variations.
Right, he gave them all at the press conference.
He gave them at the now, I can understand if he didn't see a way and he drew, like me, in this position, there's a very strong likelihood that I take on a7 against Magnus Carlsen, right?
But that's because you're saying because you're a patzer and you wouldn't have seen king g2 or rook c7, right?
That's the difference. I'm a patzer and Carlsen-Anand isn't. So what really frustrated me is Vichy said, yeah, I looked at king g2 in this position, and I looked at rook c7, and then he moved swiftly on. He just ignored it. But I thought. Yeah,
and he gave some lines where he's better, and he thought it's not enough, right?
And that's the psychological weakness that he has, is that he knows he's better, and he still didn't go for it.
Yeah, I think we agree there. The thing you could argue about, Anish was also tweeting about that, and a lot of people have said that it's not clear if it's a psychological weakness or if Vichy he's not the kind of guy to grind out slightly better positions. He never has been. If he thinks it's little, he will agree to a draw. And he's done that in the candidates where he was very successful. I don't know if anybody remembers this black game against Andreikin, for example. He had an edge. The white game against Andreikin, more extreme, of course. And he's done that in case he hasn't been so well. So that's just what he does. But yeah, this game, I agree. Like, okay, we don't have to go into the specifics. Rook c7 was a very strong move, like cutting this knight off. King g2 was also very interesting, introducing this threat of bishop f7. Let's say a6. I think here you can take. And you have a very serious advantage after picking up that rook. And even after rook takes a7, knight to c6, what really puzzled me, like here went rook b7, which is a draw offer. After knight b4, this is a dead draw, and both these guys know it. No matter what your computer says, 3 against 3, this is a dead draw. Like, even if you don't think you can win this position, why not play rook a4? Because you also can't lose this position, ever. And Vichy, the point of rook a4 is it stops knight b4, and therefore it keeps these 2 pawns on the board. Vichy gave a line at the press conference. He said rook d6. First of all, rook c1 is interesting here. I think you pointed that out. It should lead to a draw, but once again, you're keeping free pressure. Let's say rook c1 if black has to take here, rook c6. Black has to be extremely precise to hold.
Well, b5, rook g4 check, and this is all. This is rook g5 and rook f4.
Something like this.
Well,
and
I mean, you just play on here with white. I mean, Vichy, you can't lose. It's literally zero risk. Why didn't Vichy play on in this position? And this is what I'm talking about. And he saw it. That's the annoying thing. So why go for the absolute draw when you can play this? And it makes no sense to me.
I agree with you there. I mean, you could argue he's older, he doesn't believe he can win, he wants to save his energy, but in order to win the match,
Yeah, you have to do it.
You probably
You're
have
not
to.
going to just blow Magnus Carlsen out of the water. You have to play the long games.
He came close in game 3, but you can't do that every game,
No,
right?
but
Like
it's
this
not the
was
same.
a
It's
success
not the
in
same.
preparation.
That's not the same, and this is just epitomises for me where he went down. And then, he played Rook B7, and that was a draw. And I'm super critical. I was super critical then. I'm even more critical now.
Right. And before we get new enemies in India, let's make one thing very clear. I think both of us not only respect Vishy, but really like Vishy and want him to succeed. Like, I'm a Magnus fan too, but I was accused of being partial for Vishy during the match. He's a teammate of mine. I really want to see the guy do well. So none of this is meant as an insult towards Vishy. We are fans.
Oh, I think I said that from the start. You said that from the start. Nobody, Vishy's one of my idols. But, that doesn't mean that I can't criticise his chess. He's a great guy. I've had the pleasure of meeting him a lot over the past few years. Very likeable guy. Great chess player, amazing chess player, but on this occasion he did it all wrong.
I disagree with he did it all wrong. Well, yeah.
I think this game really...
Right. Yeah, and the line he was giving was Bishop B3 takes and Rook D8, and he said, yeah, with the knight on D4, you can't really win. But even that logic, you also can't lose. Like Bishop H5, you are slightly better with white, right? So just to send a message, I agree. You should have played a bit.
Yeah.
And
so game 5 was a draw, and in game 6, well, this is the game that everybody is going to remember.
this is the
it's going to go down in chess
most
history.
talked about. And the only game where Vishy, in my opinion, lost the opening battle.
He lost the opening battle, and what was
quite
really
badly.
weird is that it was a well-known way to get into a very bad ending.
Yeah,
This is
I knew that line, and I'm not saying that because it was played, but I really did know that line, and I'm not an E4 or Paulsen player, so I would assume he knew this as well, and maybe it was a bit his old strategy for the last match, that instead of trying to get a complicated game, he thought, okay, I've trained to hold these bad endings, which I think we agreed back then, and we would agree now is not a good strategy against Magnus. But yeah, it was strange. It was a pet line of Jan Nepomniachtchi who was there. Maybe he did show the line to Magnus, and it certainly helped him after Bishop B4 here, Queen D3. But all of this is very well known. And if you want a full-fledged game, you should play the move Queen C7 here. I had the feeling that Vishy's preparation was meant to lead to very concrete results. Like, okay, let's analyze this deeply. If it's an ending, it's an ending, and if we think it's okay, we'll go for it. While if you play Queen C7 here, white goes A3, and you get a slow game with a board full of pieces, right? Which probably wasn't what he was looking for. Which, once again, maybe shows your point. He had too much respect for Magnus.
Too much respect. I really do. And his logic doesn't make that much sense, actually, because if we look at Magnus as a person, let's forget about the theory, let's forget about what's on the board. Let's think about Magnus. What positions does he thrive in? He thrives in queenless middle to endgame positions with a slight edge. So why on earth are you going down a false line where you can reach a position like that? And he suffered and he suffered and he suffered. And then he got presented with just the most amazing shot probably in recent World Championships. There have been a lot of blunders, but...
Well, I did this video on the top 10 blunders in World Championship matches, and I put it on number 2, which might be a little high, but it really turned the position around from an almost winning position to a losing position. And also it was really simple to see.
Yeah.
So let's put this on the board. Yeah. First of all, they got this ending, which is not the way to play against Magnus.
No. So that the whole strategy, again, must be wrong in this particular game.
Yeah, but once again, maybe we are being too harsh, because I played 11 games, and in my opinion, this is the only time that Vishy lost the opening battle. He did win it, or would not lose it the other 10 games.
No.
So his strategy kind of been too wrong.
Why go into this? Why not play the Queen C7 line? Yes, the board is full of pieces, but that means you've got lots of pieces to work with, right? I mean, it's double-edged, it's balanced.
The thing is, it doesn't make sense to play the Sicilian to get this. Then you can really stick with the Berlin, like Corona said, right?
Why not play the Berlin? If you can get into this position, why not play Berlin, which is even better for black and less risky? And actually, the next few moves, let's just whiz through them, Jan, because they are,
Well, this is Carlsen doing his thing, right? H4, H5, Rook D3,
beautiful
all great
move.
moves. Rook G3, Bishop D3, Bishop E3, another strong move against G5.
And again, we're flicking through these, but if you want to see my recaps, please go to chess24.com. I've got a recap on every single round where I go into more depth.
Or check out our YouTube channel. We've been doing a lot of stuff on YouTube. Register on the Chess24 channel. A lot of good stuff out there. Plugging over, H takes G, Knight takes G6, and Rook H5, another excellent move. So up till here, a typical world championish Magnus Carlsen display. Yeah. But this is the kind of stuff he does, and we all knew that before, right?
Yeah, and if there was a bit of manoeuvring, looked like Magnus was just finding his feet. Not totally convinced by his play.
Nah, here he started going a bit back and forth, but this is the position everybody will keep talking about. The move King to D2. I was following on my smartphone. I couldn't believe my eyes, because Knight takes E5.
Well, everybody on their dog in the chess world knows about this move now that Knight takes E5 wins at least 2 pawns and must be a technically winning endgame at the end of it.
I've said this before, and it's really not to brag, but I would be upset if I missed this in a blitz game, and I think every titled player in the world feels like this, so it's really psychology on both sides. We know about Magnus, one of his very few weaknesses as a chess player, well, you could argue about the opening, is that once in a blue moon, once every 50 games, he has a horrific blunder. He just blunders something. He hardly ever makes strategic mistakes, or, well, very, very few. And in general, he makes very little unforced errors. But it does happen to him, and this is a very extreme case.
And the big argument, we've got a tweet here from Anthony Cunningham, who said, it can be argued that only one missed move, Knight takes E5, cost Vishy the title. I actually disagree, as I say. I think, as I've mentioned, and I will repeat this, I think in general his strategy with the white pieces and not pressing was the title decider. But of course, when you get presented with a gift 3 months before Christmas, 2 months before Christmas, like this one, all nicely wrapped with a nice little ribbon on it, sparkles everywhere, and you don't open it.
But you wait for Christmas, right? I'm sure it's a Christmas gift.
No, this one you don't wait for. You got to take it. And
Vishy, he said at the press conference, sometimes if you don't expect a gift, you don't accept it, which I disagree with. If I don't expect a gift, I'm still going to take it. But his point was, of course, it's a quiet position. He's been suffering, so he didn't think for 1 second that Magnus could blunder here. And he did play the move A4 and went on to lose again.
Do you think it's a question of he didn't expect it, or do you think, again, he's just got this kind of mindset that he doesn't think Magnus can make a mistake like that?
Well, the lines are blurry. I mean, this is a game. He has been suffering. Something went wrong in the opening. He is tense. He's calculating, can I survive if he takes on H6? Then, okay, the guy played King D2. This gives me time for my counterplay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's a mindset thing or a spur of the moment thing. What is clear, I think, is both players and everybody who plays chess will know this feeling. Once you made your move and let the piece go or press the clock, then you see the board more clearly and you instantly see, oh my God, I have just blundered the house.
Yeah.
Happens to everybody. And both had this, Carlsen after King D2 and Anand after A4.
After 1 minute of thought only. Yeah. I mean, dreadful that he missed Knight takes E5. Let Carlsen off the hook. And to be honest, after he missed that, you'd be mad to bet against Carlsen. Still maintains the pressure. And no surprise that he won the game, really.
You feel so much better being the one who just got away alive than the one who just missed taking this huge, huge gift. So no surprise Carlsen went on to win that game. And yeah, the Anthony Cunningham discussion is one of the big what-ifs. If Anand plays 95, wins the game, he's up 1 point, he is solid in the opening, he plays his 1d4, plays his Berlin. There is some pressure on Carlsen.
Really, some huge pressure, and the match would have been totally different, but he didn't take his chance. And there you go. We've got a tweet from Andy Phillips who says, how do you assess the overall quality of the games compared with previous World Championship matches? Very interesting, because we've had input from the likes of Nakamura, Aronian, who played their little match in St. Louis just the other day. What do you think, Jan?
I'm actually with Levon Aronian on that one. I thought it was an exciting match. I'm always slightly disappointed with the quality of the play, but after watching a couple of World Championship matches, I think Levon Aronian is right in saying you can't expect the players to play their best chess at this stage. This is the biggest stage. There are nerves. People are over-prepared, tired. You never see great games like you would see the same guys playing in tournaments. So you thought this was a normal level. For me, I'm not quite sure, because those were the days without engines and less scrutiny. Like, I always thought the level of these Kasparov-Karpov matches, which I grew up with, was extremely high. But it really depends on perspective, because we didn't have Twitter. Not every mistake was there within like half a second, right?
No, absolutely.
So chess level, nothing great. Opening preparation, I was very impressed with Vichy. Else, as to be expected, more or less, I would say.
All right. Okay. Well, let's move on. So Carlsen won that one, meaning that he was a point up. Game 7, Jan.
Right.
And
let's briefly answer the question from Duke. Do you think a player like Nakamura, who can complicate positions, is more dangerous or less dangerous to Magnus? Might not be a great example to make your point if we recall the score of Carlsen against Nakamura, which is what, +9 with no losses, or
well, he's got
plus
no
10,
losses.
plus
It's
11, something like that. So he has a huge score against Nakamura. So that particular player, I would say no. At the moment, with the info we got. So yeah, Game 6 is the game we will be talking about. What is interesting, starting with Game 6 and Game 7, continue this trend. Carlsen once again
Vichy
with
switches
white.
back to e5. That's
First of
important.
all, Vichy gives up on the Sicilian, which he kind of had to do after this, the way this game went. And also bad timing for him to have 2 blacks in a row. So a lot of people were worried about him losing this game as well, like huge psychological blow in Game 6, of course. But he did manage to hang in here. And what was interesting was that Carlsen went for the main line.
Yeah.
Maybe somewhere half match after Game 5, Carlsen had a bit of an intervention where his seconds, his manager, Espen Aktestein, Peter Heine, his dad, Henrik Carlsen, came in, said, Magnus, we know you're the world champion, the greatest player alive, but we need you to spend an hour in the morning and look at some openings. Can you do that for us? Because it felt like something changed. All of a sudden, he would go for main lines with white. He would be well prepared. He would get the edge in Game 6. And also in this Game 7, he actually had a nice idea against the Berlin, which was copied from Anish Giri, who played it a week before, but was still a nice idea.
Yeah.
This is deep theory stuff. And it shows a bit of a change in approach as well. Like earlier, Magnus normally wouldn't bother to go for a 25-move theory Berlin variation. But it seems like, yeah, he got less averse to theory discussions as the match went on.
Absolutely. And yeah, well, let's just hop to move 24, because that's really the first new move. This has all been following Anish Giri versus Rajabov.
Right.
And the first try here was the move...
all of this G4 is the move Anish introduced.
That's right, yeah.
Earlier they used to take, but then Rook H6 is just a draw, basically. So G4, Knight D6, Rook H7. This is Giri's idea. And it seemed to catch Vichy a little off guard. So you could argue, I said earlier, that Magnus only won the opening battle in Game 6, that he also won it in Game 7. But this is the game where, yeah, I had a lot of respect for Vichy's performance, and that he managed to keep it together, build a fortress, hang in there, and really that meant hanging in the match, because if you lose that, match is over, I think.
Let's go to the moment where he plays bishop takes G4, because that's the key moment here.
Right.
And
95, this is a very committal decision where he kind of commits to taking here.
yeah. And basically after check takes, if we go there, Jan. Yeah, takes. Yeah, this is all forced. Rook h5, and now this idea, bishop takes g4.
Clearly, was the idea of knight to e5.
Right. And apparently, I spoke to Mr. David Martinez, who I was doing the commentary with. There has been a long analysis of this ending since the match, and apparently this is actually winning for white. Although it's easier to do so off the board with your engines and everything else. But practically speaking, it was an excellent choice by Vichy. And, you know, I don't think he suffered that much in this. I think he...
No, I thought he held well. There were some key moments later on where he had to calculate very well. It was interesting because people's reactions were very different. A lot of people claimed good winning chances, while Fabiano Caruana, for example, says, looks pretty drawish to me.
Yeah.
So even top players, like absolute top players, disagreed about the assessment. And yeah, we don't have to click through the next 8,000 moves. There was one point where I was impressed. Right. It's here, after move 70, where Anand came up with a very, very concrete sequence, which, I thought was really impressive. B takes c4, rook takes c4, and rook g3. Knight takes c5, king b5. And he had calculated till the end that this is just holding. There's nothing white can do.
Yeah.
Now there's a threat of rook takes b3. The king goes anywhere. You just take. So white had to play rook c2. But then after a5, he can't move anything. Can't move the knight. The rook has to keep defending the knight. The king goes to the second rank, runs into a check. So he had to do this. But now it's just a draw. Rook c3 is coming. So I was impressed with Anand's defensive effort in that game. And I thought, okay, this match might still get interesting, because this must have given him, I don't know, morale in a strange way.
So we go to game 8 then. Before we go there, let's see if we've got a very quick, we've got a comment from Van Pelt on our news page saying, I haven't heard people complaining about the length of the match this time. Do you think 12 games is enough, Jan Gustafsson?
I don't know, I love the World Championship, so I wouldn't mind having 14 games or 16. I understand why they do it, and as long as we have a World Championship every year, it's kind of spirit of the times to have a shorter match. I think I'd be fine with every 2 years, and I'd make it 14 or 16 games instead of 12. I read somewhere, someone said no one's ever come back who was behind after 14 games. So that should be enough. Hard to say. I think it's not too bad. I prefer 14, just because I love watching.
Yeah, and again, we all understand the various issues that organisers have got. Mostly it relates to money, let's be honest with it.
To money, time, finding space in the calendar,
a lot of various logistical issues to sort out. Again, one thing is for certain, whether it's 12, 14 or 16, Jan, the fact that it's not 28 games, 32 games like it used to be in these Kasparov-Karpov battles, those days are long gone, and actually it's no good for chess. In
the good old days.
In the good old days. Now, short attention spans, quick information. If we're going to make this sport, a truly global phenomenon, I think the shorter, really, the better. So I actually, I don't mind 12 games. I wouldn't mind 14. 16 feels a bit long to me. So I think 14 is the absolute top. And
that's unlikely we're getting back even to 14. Normally,
I don't think we
stuff gets shorter, not longer.
Absolutely. So yeah, thanks for that question, Van Pelt. Let's go to game 8 now. Very interesting.
Sorry, Sam Thompson, we won't have time to get into the details of the winning plan.
We'll try
I have no
and
idea
tweet
what the
it.
winning plan is, but Lawrence, maybe you can tweet some links.
I'll try and tweet the link for you, Sam, when I find it myself, because I haven't actually seen it, but I was told that it's, brutal analysis of one of these beasts. Game 8.
Game 8, once again, Anand's 1 d4 serve, and once again Carlsen plays a line which can be used once. He goes back to the Queen's Gambit, plays c5, which was not the most popular move here. And after Queen c2, the really offbeat move, rook to e8. Little idea, prepared for one game. This has, if you ask me, Peter Heine Nielsen written all over it. This is the kind of stuff he does, and we'll never know who gets the credit, but it's certainly a nice move for one game. even this one did not surprise Vichy. He
he
did
knew
play
bishop
quickly.
g5 and
Personally, I think c takes d is not a bad move either. E
No.
takes d, bishop e2, but that's up for discussion. Bishop g5,
it looks like
critical move. Rook d1, queen a5, bishop d3.
I mean, even here after a6, I mean...
This is the critical point, I believe, after a6, the critical point already. First of all, for Magnus Carlsen, because he was falling asleep
Unbelievable.
during the game over
Just-
the board. I'm not sure what happened to him, but I saw in the live cast that he literally couldn't keep
Fell
his eyes
asleep,
open,
yeah.
so maybe he was ill or tired.
Yeah.
Not quite sure.
How
a6, and when I was analyzing this game, I thought bishop a2 here. Subtle, but
so
pretty strong.
easy to play. I just can't believe he didn't play it. It's just such an obvious move that you play bishop a2 before castles in order to give you this option of rook d7 at the very end. It's just child's play. So b5, bishop b1. Black would love to play bishop b7, but rook d7 just wins on the spot. Well, you can take or rook whatever. Well, no, this allows g6. Oh, no, it doesn't allow g6. There's mate.
No, this is a lot.
Rook d7. Rook d7 straight away as well is quite pretty, but maybe not necessary.
Yeah.
You can just go rook d7 straight away.
Alright.
Same idea. The point is you're crashing through. Why he didn't play bishop a2 is really strange. You can't call it a mischance because there's probably some way to defend, right?
Well, I think Team Carlsen had done their homework here. They must have expected this because it's a critical move. And I was looking a bit at moves like knight e5 and black's probably surviving, but it's not a lot of fun.
Doesn't
So
feel
it's
that
once
clear to
again
me.
not a variation you want to play every game.
And again, missed opportunity, not so much. I won't criticise Vichy so much in this.
No,
play.
also this is kind of normal modern chess. You run into a line which you hadn't seen coming and your opponent knows everything and it ends in a draw. The game itself, petered out. Not much to say.
Yeah, there's not much to say
True here.
about the game.
Decent gamble, you could say, from Magnus Carlsen, who, he understood I have trouble against 1d4 and he switched to one-game variations like this Queen's Indian and like this, and it kind of worked for him.
Absolutely. Game 9 then, and another draw. And
Interesting strategy by Carlsen.
yeah,
He took a quick draw in the Berlin.
yeah, he took a quick draw with white, which Vichy was evidently happy with because it meant that 1 point behind, 3 games to go, 2 whites as well.
Yeah, and
I'm
he
gonna
had
push.
been doing well with white, so I thought this was reasonable. I mean, he repeated this line, which clearly indicates king e8 and h5. This you play to hold, not to win. So he was happy with the draw, and Carlsen, well, first of all, had no objections, maybe was a bit tired, as we've seen in the earlier game. Secondly, he's up a point. And third, it's not easy to come up with a fresh idea in the Berlin every game, so maybe he just needed a breather to regroup.
That was a draw then, and meant
Yeah,
that...
not much there. Just
a
they found
repetition.
an early move repetition.
And then the next game, Jan, if we go to... Where are we? Game 10 already. We're nearly coming towards the end. Remember to tweet us, ladies and gentlemen. We want to hear from you.
Thomas R. is asking, you don't discuss Game 3 at all? I think you're late to the party. We've talked plenty about Game 3, haven't we?
He did post that 32 minutes ago, in fairness.
Okay. We've talked
But
about
you
it
are,
since, right?
yeah, we definitely talked about Game 3. That was a critical game. So please review this on demand if you want to see us talking about that. Send us your tweets, #C24Live. We've got a comment from Alejandro Martinez. I think Carlsen hasn't been brilliant this year. I would say player of the year is Fabiano Caruana. Would agree 100% with you. Fabiano's performance in numerous events this year, the fact that he gained just 50 rating points is unheard of at that level. And
Yeah, it's very hard to argue against that after St. Louis and with Caruana closing the gap to Carlsen so much. Still, Carlsen, he did keep his world champion title. He's still the #1 rated player in the world. But 2013 was a stronger year for Carlsen than 2014, no question.
Would agree with you, Alejandro. So game 10, and let's go there. And this again, if we go right to the bottom there we go. Again, this was another game where penultimate white, and it's just, let's go through it. We had a Grunfeld again.
Which once again shows Magnus didn't come with an opening that was holding
No.
for this match, so he had to switch. And once again, with black, he ran into trouble. He went knight a6. Nowadays, the Grunfeld book nerds play a6, as recommended by our boy Peter Svidler in his Grunfeld series. But knight a6 certainly a playable move here, one which has been played by Kasparov in the old days. Carlsen studied the Grunfeld with Kasparov, or he said they certainly discussed it in their training sessions. But it didn't look like he had expert knowledge here either.
Down this line, because
Bishop g5, a bit of a sideline, but played by Wojtaszek before. And I think Carlsen...
Anand second, we should point out.
Right.
Yeah, that's not just some random name we're putting out there. Wojtaszek, Anand second for a long time.
Well, but you couldn't really expect Anand to go 5 queen b3. He hasn't done that for a long time. So
No.
can't blame Carlsen too much for not being into details here. And I don't think he was. I think this knight e4, it's not approved by computers at all. He played it very quickly. Queen b6 is what the comms want to see and what has been played before. And yeah, once again, he ran into some trouble. d6 is a good move here. What happened in the game was also not so bad. Queen c1, not sure. Like, I was always rooting for d6, but I must admit I haven't analyzed it that deeply.
I think queen c1 is a decent move, though.
Sure.
And after queen f6, this line, bishop h6, queen b2.
Well, the first question here was, I was very surprised Carlsen went queen b2 so quickly, which looked dangerous. It's very much in his style to get rid of the queens whenever he feels in trouble. But bishop d5, I thought, was an easier way trying to hold the position, and I thought this would be dangerous to allow for Vichy, who needed to push in this game.
Yeah.
Anyway, queen b2 was played. This is correct. Queen b2, bishop b2, knight g5. You could argue about d6, also possible.
Knight g5 is fine.
Bishop d4.
A good move.
Yeah, here once again there were some alternatives. Bishop b5, bishop takes d5,
Yeah, this is
takes,
fine
takes.
for black, I think.
Yeah, there were some discussions, but I think I agree.
No, I loved. I was so happy up to here when he took on e4. He rejected winning the exchange, kept the pressure on. Bishop f3, d6, rook d7, bishop f4. I was so happy. I thought Vichy, brilliant. You know, you're playing with white. You've got something. Just, play. Just keep your focus and play. And after night before, I just couldn't believe he didn't go a3 here. I mean.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a psychological thing. That's an honest chess mistake.
Maybe it's an honest chess mistake, but a3 is, for me, such a natural move. I couldn't.
Yeah, well, so was rook d2.
I think you want the rooks connected because there's always back rank issues. I mean,
No, obviously, I
even
agree,
here,
a3
rook
is a strong
fe1
move.
is a really strong
No.
move. Rook fe1, I was surprised he didn't even play. I mean, rook d2 just. I know it's natural. I know I'm being super critical, maybe overly critical here, but rook fe1 looked like such a.
No,
good
I
move.
obviously agree these are chess mistakes, and you could argue they cost him the match. The point I'm not sure I agree with if this is a psychological thing that he didn't want to push in this spot. I mean, and not just an honest chess mistake. He didn't make the best move.
No, he didn't make the best move.
But yeah, of course, after rook d2, it allows rook e8, and Carlsen was
Great
basically
move.
fine.
Yeah.
Very strong move. While if white goes a3 here, knight c6, rook e1, some suffering to do.
Real suffering, and given the simplicity of the line, just you do your h4 g4 stuff like the game, but you've maintained all the pieces. So was surprising to me, I have to admit. But maybe rook d2 was an honest chess mistake rather than psychological, as you said, a psychological.
Yeah, you never know. But
issue.
yeah, in this position, for example, yeah, my first instinct was also like if you can sacrifice the exchange, even that might offer good chances, right? So I kind of could understand where thinking was coming from. But once again, you could argue chess-wise, and that's Magnus Carlsen's big strength. He got out of the tough spots. Like his opening preparation wasn't great, but he's so hard to beat, even after a bad opening.
My instinct here was just to let the pawn go. I just wanted to go rook fe1 straight away on move 24. Because I see rook e7, I see bishop d5, and I see that I'm probably winning in a lot of those lines. So interesting to compare. But okay, we won't blame Vichy too much for that one. Although, when you've got the initiative like that against Carlsen, you have to keep, and maybe it is a lacking in chess strength rather than a psychological factor. Some more tweets. Ozzy Uwaifo retains title, acquires 2 more world titles, and that's not enough. Wow, that's a fair point. You know, he won the World Rapid and Blitz championships as well.
That's what I'm saying. It's very hard to argue with a guy who won everything, even though he was less dominant than 2013.
But then again, you know, that's kind of expected of him, Ozzy. That's the problem. When you're the highest rated player of all time, the best ever, that's what expected. What people didn't expect is that Fabiano Caruana was going to get 7 out of 7 in Sinkfield and put in the biggest performance of all time. They didn't expect him to... He won Dortmund as well, if I remember correctly. Is that correct?
He did, yeah. However, I don't think I agree with your point. Just because he's supposed to be the strongest, if he keeps being the strongest and it's not a surprise, I think he still deserves the Oscar. So
yeah,
I believe one should have some objective criteria, like rating performance in 2014. And there, I'm not sure, I haven't looked at it, but it could very well be that Caruana has a higher rating performance than Magnus Carlsen all over 2014. You could make
real tough one. There's a case for both, absolutely.
You can make a case for Grishuk, 28-10.
Nah, not sure.
Yeah, not the same.
I'm not sure you can make a case for Grishuk. I think it's easily between Carlsen and Caruana. So that ended in a draw, and then but Hofer Vichy wasn't quite... We don't really have to go into it. Yeah. Carlsen played some. Let's go to game 11. And this was, well, I mean...
Yeah, and with all the criticism, mainly from you, though, for Vichy, like others. This game... Game 11, he came, in my mind, very close. I thought he outplayed... Once again, he was great in the opening. He outplayed Magnus and had a better position. And if he wins that game, all of a sudden his score is equal and he's white in the last game of the match.
Arguably his best game of the match, up to move 26. Played brilliant chess, move 23.
Well, first thing we have to point out, he stuck to the Berlin, but that's not necessarily a draw offer, especially now that he knew that Magnus is going for this ending main line. We've seen the likes of Magnus himself, Vladimir Kramnik, pretty much everybody win games with black here, Levon Aronian. And he changes lines. He doesn't go for this drawish line with king e8, h5, but goes for bishop d7. I was once again a bit critical of Carlsen's preparation here. I felt he didn't choose a critical line. Like rook d1 is the en vogue move here, and I think with good reason. Carlsen played this king, knight c3, and Anand's preparation was great with his bishop e6, knight d5, g5.
Yeah.
Very Berlin-esque, beautiful stuff. Got a good position.
23.
Yeah, let's show this move. Knight ef6, mistake by Carlsen, which goes to show he does make mistakes.
Of course he does. And
b5, great move. Like, first of all, it's a great chess move, and secondly, for psychological effect, he's considering such moves, and he does want to open it up, because this is a position you can just do nothing and be fine, like bishop g7. But great move. C takes b, c6 is good for black. A, B, A4, also good for black.
So, Carlsen played bishop c3, which, practically speaking, is actually a pretty decent move. Just not losing the thread too much, not being...
I was impressed with Carlsen here. First of all, he played bishop c3 quickly, even though he must have been surprised by by b5. He didn't spend much time showing what a great practical player he is. And then after takes, king c6, I was really impressed by his next move, which... might come easy to him, but I thought it was very impressive.
Yeah.
Move king to f3. Spotted the essence of the position. He needs to reinforce these 2 points and brings his king to e4 to achieve that.
Yeah, and it was here where a lot of people were critical of Vichy, Nepomniachtchi, various others, where the move bishop e7, going down a long force line where you bishop e7, king e4. Let's put that on the board. Bishop e7, king e4, takes. This is all force. Or bishop takes d5 first, and king d6 is also ef6, bishop d5, c d5, king d6. With what is just a decent position for black and no risk. You're playing rook e8, knight f4. So
black is slightly better.
And black is better. And again, Vichy saw it. And this is perhaps another moment where we can criticise Vichy. Yeah, I saw this, but, and then quickly move on to another topic. But why but? Why not just think, hold on. I'm going rook e8, I'm going knight f4, I'm better.
But that's a thing we can criticize him for his nerves, but not for lack of courage, because what he played is much more risky than that.
Right.
It's not like he
It's
chickened
a
out.
psychological nerves thing. This is what I'm trying to say. What he played, though, when we look at Rook B4 on move 27.
Yeah, I think it was just a mistaken case of pattern recognition, because there's Rook B4 in different positions. It's a very classical, well-known exchange sacrifice. Normally it's taught to us as a good thing from the textbooks, right? Like Rook B4, instructive. And yeah, in this position, Rook DB8, there were other good moves, not only Bishop E7, but Bishop G7 is a good move, Bishop C8 is a good move, surprisingly, and Rook AB8 is also a good move. But yeah, the cleanest line was Bishop E7, take here, get rid of all the arrows, and have a better ending. Yeah. So Rook DB8, King E4, and Rook B4, not a good move. Rook B3, and black is still fine.
Still with pressure, in my opinion.
Yeah, the computer gives something like Rook B1, Rook A3, Rook A1. Here, for example, if you want to push it, you can take here and here. This is a much better exchange sacrifice for black.
Amongst other lines.
This pawn is gone. Yeah, just one of many lines.
But this Rook B4 idea just wasn't enough. But we have to give...
First of all, Rook B4. And secondly, after Bishop B4, I really thought you have to play A takes B4 here. Just keeping this rook active, maybe making a white rook having an eye on it. Also very important to control the D4 square. So C takes B4, it's prettier in a way. You get rid of your double pawns, you clear the square for the king, but it's just not dynamic enough. So something went wrong there for Vichy, and I agree with you, this is not a chess thing, because his judgment or his understanding is so great, he should judge from afar. This is not quite working, so it's a nerves thing. Let's go with this idea.
We have to take our hats off for Magnus, who from this moment onwards, 29 knight h5 might be one of the best moves he made all match in this.
No, I think from King C6 onwards, he really switched into Hulk mode, like this King F3, King E4, and Knight H5, F4, another fantastic plan.
No, but just impeccable, just absolutely perfect chess from move 29. And
and I think he doesn't let go till the end. No. Like Rook D7, all of these moves are the very best move. Rook A6, Vichy did fight back. Rook A6, Rook C6, a good idea. But Carlsen really was in Hulk mode here.
Unbelievable. Yeah, just saw everything, didn't he?
Yeah. That to me means that he won the match deservedly, because in the money game, when it really mattered, okay, once again, he got nothing out of the opening, even got into some trouble. But when it mattered from move 30 till 40 in the decisive game, he just played perfectly. And
just unbelievable.
Hats off to Mr. Carlsen for that.
Deserved winner. We got a tweet from James the Conqueror. Do you think that the loser of the World Championship being granted a direct spot into the candidates? Personally, I don't. Very good question that I've not seen before. Jan, what do you think? Do you think Vichy deserves a spot in the candidates?
I don't have such a strong opinion on that. How many players on the candidates? 8, 10? 8, right?
8.
I think you can make a decent case for it. You can make a decent case for or against every system. What is it, like 4 out of the Grand Prix, 2 out of the World Cup, 1 by rating? And
one...
no, it's not 4 out of the Grand Prix, right? It's 2 probably, and more by rating. I don't know the system well enough. I don't have a big problem with it. I mean, this is the guy who won the candidates last year. You could certainly make a case. Clearly, he hasn't had time to play in the cycle, in the Grand Prix, and so on, because he played the match that he should be in the next candidates.
I think there's a case either way as well, James, but a very good question indeed. So thank you for that. Just a very quick tweet from Jonathan Miller. Great to see you guys together again. Thanks, Jonathan. Just watched the first 30 minutes of Gravity. Horrible, just a bad movie. You're right. It's a terrible stinking movie. What a waste of money. Literally.
Speaking of the first 30 minutes of Gravity, this is the time. Let's throw some spoilers out there so people don't see it, right? Like, because it's a horrible movie. This is the time George Clooney hangs in there around a woman his own age, and then he decides to float into space and die.
Yeah. No, he didn't quite die, though, did he?
He did die.
Oh, he did die.
You've really blocked out.
Oh, no, it's gone. Yeah. Anyway.
Have you seen Interstellar? I haven't seen Interstellar. I haven't seen it. I have a feeling I'm going to hate it as well, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And with that win, Carlsen won the match and deserved winner. Again, we spoke at length about the reasons why and why not Vichy didn't manage to do it.
Still, as
Open to
humans,
interpretation.
we have of course, a tendency to put a storyline on everything. I just felt, at least this time, there is different storylines. You could argue, okay, if game 11 goes another way, the match could go differently. If game 6 goes another way, the match could go differently.
Always.
Or as you said, if he presses more with white, the match could go differently. At least there is many storylines where the match can go differently, which was not the case after the last match in Chennai. So Vichy, to my mind, he did not disappoint in this one. He lost, I think Magnus overall is a stronger player, has better nerves, makes better decisions, especially under pressure by now. But he's also 20 years younger, and I thought Vichy, at this point in his career, played a good match.
All right. What do you think, Ian? Do you think it's a good time for us to wrap up? We've been on for an hour and a half.
No. Any further questions? The
Any
producer
further
is
tweets?
plugging Guardians of the Galaxy, which is an excellent movie. I do agree with that. Even though I felt like they stole their key character from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like this Master Splinter.
I have not seen the film.
It's good. It's a good movie.
I cannot comment. Any more tweets? Hashtag C24 Live. Please let us know ASAP. Otherwise, we're going to call it a day. 'Cause
Audi.
it's 8 o'clock here as well, so we've had a pretty full day.
Sam Thompson, friend of the show, first of all, thanks for all the tweets, is saying Interstellar is much better. Had Caltech physics PhD as executive producer, so that helps. Isn't Caltech the place where Sheldon Cooper and company hang out?
Probably.
Were they involved in the movie?
They might be, yeah.
I heard it's a typical Christopher Nolan thing, that it's very clever, but it lacks,
Fails, yeah.
it lacks humanity. It lacks
humanity.
warmth,
Mm-hmm.
which was a bit the problem of Gotham City and all these Batman movies. Like, nobody really lives in Gotham City, right?
I don't know.
It looked like that from the movies.
Remember to become a premium member, ladies and gentlemen.
Shouldn't we do a show just about movies? Like, once a week, Jan and Lawrence discuss movies. We watch some movies. I'd care a lot more than about the chess show. Magnus Carlsen is world champion. Yeah, Corona is good too. Yeah, Vichy did all right. Sure, but Interstellar, that's where the money's at.
It is. Certainly a lot more money in the production of Interstellar than there is Interstellar. No, we're not. We're okay. Remember to go premium, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the numerous live chats that we're going to be producing over the next few months. But if you go premium, you'll be able to watch our various series as well, produced by the likes of Jan Gustafsson, Carlsen-Anand, Peter Svidler, in various languages, Spanish, German,
As a
English.
tactics trainer, we got a lot more live stuff coming up. I think my biggest argument is we have the Q&A with Lawrence Trent planned. He doesn't know about that yet, but only premium members will be allowed to ask Lawrence Trent questions.
And you can ask me whatever you want. They can be X-rated questions as well.
I think only X-rated questions by premium members will be allowed.
By premium members will be accepted. So if you want to ask something about my life, of course, I might not tell you, but become a premium member anyway. Awesome. And if it's a decent X-rated question, I will answer you. So keep your eyes out for that. And keep your eyes out for future events on Chess24.
Absolutely.
We've got the London Chess Classic coming up shortly.
We've got all the good stuff. We got you covered.
You got me covered?
You're going to... not you personally.
Oh,
we got the viewers covered. You're going to London, right?
I'm going to London in about a week's time, actually. I'll be back home.
Time flies.
So, London Chess Classic, Caruana, Kramnik, Anand, Giri, Nakamura. I mean, that's a pretty big tournament already. Nakamura and Adams.
Yeah, it's a non-Carlsen tournament, but nowadays it's a Caruana tournament, and you could argue that's quite a storyline by itself. Like, I'm always excited how this guy is going to do.
Watch our live coverage on Chess24, more details nearer the date. But for now, I think it's a good time for us to say ciao. It's 8 o'clock, dinner time.
It's been a pleasure. Good hearing from you guys. Always a pleasure reuniting with International Master Lawrence Trent, who will be Grandmaster soon. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Vichy. Thanks, Magnus Carlsen, for a good show. Thanks, Jose, for producing the show.
Been a trooper.
Thanks, everybody.
Ciao.
Bye.